Welcome back to Brand Champions. I'm Howard Walpoff, your host. Again, this is brought to you by Teal, the agency, and we're here to talk about branding with two very special guests. I have Susan Westwater from Pragmatic Digital and Ronjini Joshua from Silver Telegram with us today. And welcome both to our conversation.
Hello.
All right, so we are going to jump into a conversation about branding, which you're both very familiar with, and is very important to companies that want to make a statement, want people to understand who they are and what they do. So, Ronjini, when you are starting to talk to a company, what kind of questions are you asking them to kind of get a better sense of the direction to focus their branding on?
It's really what kind of mission do they want to evangelize? What is their goal, the end goal? We like to make sure that everything that we do in PR, of course, aligns with a reputation that they want to continue to have over a long period of time. And they want to build that trust and credibility with their customer and the audience and the media. So that's really messaging is really the key there.
Messaging and storytelling to make sure that you're getting the right information across. So what is it that you focus on when you're trying to find those stories and trying to get them out to the media? Obviously, some jump out off the page, but some you really have to craft to make sure that these companies can get the messaging out that they're looking for.
Yeah, it's sometimes you don't know what's going to hit. It really depends on timeliness, what's happening in politics. As right now, it's really very difficult to kind of figure out what's going to stick with people. So you really have to be nimble. I work with a lot of startups, which actually gives me that ability, and so we have to be nimble in changing our focus or kind of shifting the story. Sometimes it's the founder story and how their background inspired what they do. And sometimes it's the product story and how innovative they are and how they're changing the industry in a certain way. So you really can't always tell what the hook is going to be. So you really have to be willing to try lots of different things and shift when you need to. And really understand who you're approaching as far as the media too. You got to know what they are covering, what angles are interesting in the news. So we do a lot of news jacking and kind of piggybacking on trends that are happening. And so that's another great way to get into the media, but also a different angle, right? It's not always your brand first. Sometimes it's, your expertise first and being able to insert yourself into the narrative that's already happening.
Now, expertise is a very good choice of words. Now, Susan, when you're focusing on a company, sometimes the expertise is the person and not the company. So how are you translating that into creating the brand to make sure that people have a better understanding of what the company can provide to them?
What it comes down to is starting with first what the audience needs. It's not going to matter if we can monologue all day, but we live in a world now where it's an exchange and it's a conversation. And therefore, we think very deeply about what are those important points of what that brand or company or person provides to their audience so they can hear themselves and therefore be a lot more relevant. But at the same time, we also want to make sure what the core of their brand is, because that's not something that should change with preference. It's not something that should change. And so we have a lot of discussions around what are those 2, 3 core pieces of that. And when we are turning that into a personality that is going to be spoken with, and it may or may not be their spokesperson, depending on how guarded and whether or not it's had a voice before, we then will look at ways of what are those archetypes that are the most important that always ring true regardless of channel.
Yeah, having that core message clear is very important because you really are, you're speaking to an audience, not really how I am comfortable with what I am saying in the process.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of puzzle pieces to a brand. Color and logo and theme are a big part of it. How often are you having conversations with companies whose core message might be different than the color scheme or logo image that they're trying to produce because this is what they like, and knowing that there's something different that speaks to the audience that they're trying to speak to?
So we have a framework just to help them through that. We also start with some examples and demos so they can get their heads wrapped around the idea of what happens when your brand actually starts to speak. Because we work in the conversational AI space, there's sonic branding, there are pieces to it. So it is a lot more than the colors and the logos. Those are important though, because those are important reference cues. But we also then look into that personality. We develop that into, and again, we do testing for relevance to also help with that validation. So it's not preference by a brand manager. It's actually some data that comes through with focus groups and other pieces of testing that we do just to make sure that we are not making sure that we're staying right on relevant to the audiences we have, and then also that we're attracting the audiences we want to as we want to grow.
Well, it's clear that attracting the right audience, whether it's through the brand or through the messaging or through the type of PR campaign that the company is doing, is really the most important thing. You really want to speak to that audience. You really want to have the right messaging, and you really want to see success for your client. So I thank you both for joining us today and really sharing all this these great concepts of the things that you're doing day to day within branding and PR.
Of course. Thanks for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having us.
And thank you all for joining us as well. Having that right message is very important. Having the right way to share that message is equally or even more so important to make sure that you are resonating with your audience. So please check out information from our guests we have below. Go out and have a great rest of today, and we will see you next time.